Look, folks, I know I'm the all-knowing, all-caring, all-sensing, all-feeling, all-everything Maharishi, but I do not know why the New York Times is dumping on the Clintons. I know what the possibilities are, but I do not know why they're doing it, and they are doing it. There is no question that there is, I don't know, an agenda or a storyline on this. But, I mean, Bill Clinton is just raked over the coals here for being a reprobate, for being money hungry, for demanding to be paid for all of their good works, for demanding to be the focus of everybody's attention. I mean, it is not pretty. This is not something you walk back from. This is not a hit piece that you say, oh, okay, maybe I was a bit too whatever, and apologize for it or walk it back. Nor are these stories that are being done on the Clinton Library, Massage Parlor, and Foundation. Nor are the stories on Huma. I mean, there's nothing the Clintons can do or say to cause there to be retractions on these stories. The Maureen Dowd piece is an actual character attack as much as it is anything else. I mean, when you start criticizing people for being money hungry, liberals, money hungry, demanding to be paid for every good work they do, making $17 million giving speeches, and contrasting that with Harry Truman, who didn't earn a penny trading on the office when he left it, and talking about how much Hillary makes per speech. I mean, she's created a picture here of people who are in it for the money. And that is an injurious hit to a liberal who wants to be thought of as above all of that. A liberal is a liberal because of a good, big heart and a compassionate mind and all that. They're not interested in money. It's one of the big myths that survives out there, and it's being blown up here where the Clintons are concerned. Maureen Dowd also wrote, the Clintons want to do big, worthy things, but they also want to squeeze money from rich people wherever they live on planet Earth, insatiably gobbling up cash for politics and charity and themselves from the same incestuous swirl. Now that I think can be said of all of them. That is true of every leftist cause. Isn't that what they do for AIDS? Ending poverty, climate change? Don't the left always find a way to get rich while the problems never get fixed? Look at Al Gore. Al Gore has become a three-figure multimillionaire perpetuating a hoax. The hoax of man-made global warming. And all of these liberals get rich while advocating and promoting their causes, and there's always a component that requires everybody else giving up money. You have to change the car you're driving. You have to change your lifestyle. You have to get poorer. They get richer. That's what the first New York Times story was about. Essentially, was here you have the Clinton Global Initiative, which is a foundation engaged in philanthropy, and it chronicled all the people getting rich from it. I mean, this is a huge veil being lifted from practically every leftist cause out there. Well, let's look at Maureen Dowd here again. The Clintons want to do big, worthy things, but they want to squeeze money from rich people wherever they live on planet Earth, insatiably gobbling, that's donations to the charity, or speech fees, or what have you, initially insatiably gobbling up money for politics, money for policy, selling the Lincoln bedroom or the White House coffees. All of this was going on, and while it was happening, there was laughing about it. There was some reporting. It was a little bit critical. But mostly they put a veil over it in order to protect the Clinton image. as people totally focused on good works and not themselves. And that's why this is remarkable to me. And that's why I say you can't, this is going to be very difficult. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but this is going to be very difficult to walk back. Now, maybe the Times could get it out of their system and then ignore it and go back to covering the Clintons the way they did, but it's still out there. And I guess it's still possible that what all this is simply get the junk out of the way now, clear the decks for a Hillary run, so that when other people bring these things up, they can say it's been done. They're reported on. Oh, yeah, Maureen Dowd wrote about that 2 years ago. And here I am still on the precipice of becoming the nominee, what have you. But I think this is every liberal cause. I don't care whether it's AIDS, ending poverty, global warming, stopping malaria, you name it. Every liberal involved is getting rich, promulgating these charities, while everybody else gets poorer. Here's more from Maureen Dowd. Clinton world is a galaxy where personal enrichment and political advancement blend seamlessly, and where a cast of jarringly familiar characters pad their pockets every which way to Sunday. All right, how is that any different from any other Democrat and his or her cause, like Al Gore? Personal enrichment. This has long been a point that I've tried to make in my own inimitable style on this program. A lot of liberals get rich running these charities, living off of the donations they solicit. They don't actually have real-world jobs. They don't actually start businesses or work at businesses and take a share of what is produced or created. They set themselves up in these profitable or not-for-profit foundations or organizations, and they live off the donations. But they do get rich in the process. And while they, Kennedys, and while they get rich, their public image soars as great, compassionate, philanthropic people. Remember, there's another aspect to this. People ask me, and have asked me frequently over the course of this program, about all these wealthy Democrats and why they're Democrats. People most often to me mention Buffett and Bill Gates because those two appear to be uber capitalists. The people ask me, why are these guys Democrats? I said, there's a very simple answer. These really hyper-rich people insulate themselves and their wealth by appearing to be opposed to it. Sort of a modified Limbaugh theorem. Become rich, get really rich, and then become a person that supports liberal Democrat causes oriented toward helping the poor or what have you. Meanwhile, you don't give any of your money to it, but you just say you're for it, and in the process, you create the impression that you're not a greedy capitalist. And therefore, nobody wants to go after your money. But they do want to go after AIG's money, and they do want to go after certain Wall Street funds, certain individuals. It's in one way, it is a gutless way, but smart, of making sure the peasants with pitchforks don't try to cross the moat and get to their house and get their money. Because the peasants with pitchforks end up thinking that all these super uber rich people are looking out for them, trying to help them. It's a pretty smart trick. But I think with what's being exposed with the Clintons here by in this case Maureen Dowd, but the New York Times in general, is an open book on every liberal Democrat cause and how these people actually do get rich and then attain this status of super compassionate, big-hearted, only cares about others characterization. Even the Wall Street Journal, and I say even because aside from the editorial page, Wall Street Journal, it also bends a little leftward out there. And they have a piece today entitled Hillary's Racial Politics. And I'm going to bore you with the whole piece, but what it focuses on is why Hillary is making such a big deal about voting rights acts and voting laws, and why she's out there speaking to the American Bar Association and the NAACP about the right to vote and black people and how it's being taken away from them, and all of this gobbledygook that isn't true. And here's a pull quote: "The disconnect between these facts and Mrs. Clinton's assertions suggests that Mrs. Clinton is the one playing racial politics. The current narrow Democrat majority is largely a coalition based on gender and racial identity. It requires big turnout among single women and non-whites. And as the Obama era winds down, the fear among Democrats is that these voters won't have the same enthusiasm. Take the first African-American president off the ballot, not as much enthusiasm. Get rid of the front-running feminazi female, not as much enthusiasm. In other words, they need to cheat. They need avenues to vote for. This is why they're so opposed to photo ID. What this story in the Wall Street Journal is pointing out is essentially Hillary knows she doesn't have a prayer without voting laws stacked in her favor. That is, maintaining the standard that there will be no photo ID required. And there's only one reason for that, and that's so that you can have voter fraud. It's pure and simple. And everybody knows. I actually think given the Democrats' incessant focus on voting rights, and the idea here that there's still some effort out there to deny minorities the right to vote. If anything, there is an effort to count their votes more than once. If anything, there is an effort to get people not even qualified to vote. The idea that there's an effort to squash minority voting is absurd. It's just the exact opposite. Everybody's pandering to them. And the way the Democrats operate, they're trying to see to it that minorities can vote multiple times. Early voting, absentee voting, same-day voter registration as voting. All of this is aimed at overwhelming an electoral system that can't keep up with the fraud. In one sense, you could probably say that it is a wonder Republicans win anything. And then you would say it's got to be a testament to the power of Republican or conservative ideas. But every time I see a Democrat on television wailing and moaning and complaining and crying about Voting Rights Act here and voting rights laws, as though there's still this effort from the 1800s to deny the right to vote to minorities. What an insult to intelligence that is. As I said, the effort is to get those people voting multiple times. And the whole idea that a photo ID is the equivalent of a poll tax or some such, all this age-old language that incites old ideas of racism and Jim Crow slavery and this kind of, it's absurd. Well, anyway, the Wall Street Journal is calling her on it in this piece. And anyway, it's all happened before she's even announced, which we also must point out. Let's take a brief break, and as promised, back to your phone calls right after this.